everybody. It is February 8th, 2026, and it's 10:30 in the morning. This is Cosmic Muppet Thule. This is the Winter Sauce Podcast. You can find me at all these places, wintersauceproductions.com. We have our merch shop, YouTube, Instagram, X, Telegram, our chat, Facebook, eBay, Substack, all that. Okay, this one's on information containment in memetic warfare. And this is just going to be me teaching people stuff, and that's how the podcasts are going to work now. So we got PowerPoint. I hate the stroke effect, but we got this, and then we got this AI synthwave frogs. Okay, so that's that. Information containment in memetic warfare. Now, what is memetic warfare? Okay, there's kinetic warfare, which is what you think of when you think of warfare. When you get some guys, you go out, you get some machine guns, and you shoot some people. Okay, that's violent warfare. Memetic warfare is spiritual warfare. The actual term, and you can go look this up, is memetics. And that is meme warfare. This is an actual meme somebody made after some anarchist anti-ICE database was just hacked. And they went and they got a picture of Tom Holman and they made a meme with it. This is what people are programmed to do. This is the phase that we're in. Because we've made enough weapons and bombs to kill each other all the time, so there's no challenge in that anymore. So instead you have this memetic or spiritual warfare, which is basically metaphysical warfare. Which I've been talking about for as long as we've been doing these podcasts, and everybody says, oh, he's schizophrenic, he's insane, but no, this is actually a thing. Now, we're going to go back to Minneapolis and start there. Jake Lang, or the guy from the last video, I don't even know if this is his actual name, got arrested again. He got stabbed, and then he got his tactical gear back on, and then he went to either Minneapolis or St. Paul. Okay, they had, because it's fucking cold here, and people who don't live around in this area don't know what this is. They made these ice sculptures or something, because it's cold. Somebody made one that said, prosecute ICE. And he went and kicked it down and filmed it. I saw parts of the video online and then he posted it. So he kicked down this sign, he's wearing his tactical gear and everything. Not surprisingly, he was arrested again. Run up, get done up. You go do this on state property, they're going to arrest you in some leftist-controlled area. You notice that nobody on the right's defending this. And he's still contributing zero to the political discourse because this is not making any major news other than him just being a parody of himself. Now you go, why would someone be that dumb? Are they that incompetent? Potentially. More likely this is a fad or a plant. Same thing can be said with all the stuff Candace Owens is putting out there, as this is either a fad, a plant, or some mentally ill person, or some person being set up to go do this and put out this info. I'm not making any allegations. I'm not attempting to defame anyone by saying that. It's just saying there's two choices here. A rational person capable of critical thinking is presented with two exact choices. One, the person presenting this is completely incompetent or mentally ill, and you wonder why they're able to keep this up for this long. Or two, they're allowed to continue to behave this way potentially on purpose. I don't have any evidence of that. That's why I'm using the word likely. This guy is running for political office, and what these people like to do is just sue people into taking stuff down they don't like. And I highly doubt that with the amount of people that view this podcast that this would be defamatory. But whatever. Anyway, information containment in memetic warfare. That's what I want to get back to. And that's just a symptom. That's just one incident of several. When you start to see these things, start to know where to look. Now we're going to go back to the Epstein File dump that was last week with 3 million plus files. The DOJ and everybody got everybody tired of bitching at him and just finally dumped it. Did a press conference or everything. I didn't watch that. I'm not fixated on this like a lot of people are, where it's my whole be-all, end-all reason for being, and the fact that it isn't promptly delivered to everybody in a nice, neat little silver platter means that everybody should have voted for Kamala Harris and imminent economic collapse. I'm not of that crowd. Now, it was a complete disaster because you can't just put out 3 million plus files at one time and have it not be a disaster. And I've heard everything from Bill Gates, who apparently tried to hide treating his now ex-wife for an STD. And this is why she left him, because he went to fucking Pedo Island with Epstein. And just because it's all, it's computer nerds, repressed sexual behavior, just go there and indulge. So he went there, went crazy, did some stuff, and his wife divorced him for it. Bill Gates, some diva from WWE who died, I forget her name, was mentioned in there. And even Tony Hawk, I guess, was somehow mentioned. And I'm not saying there's anything there. It's just, what would a guy like that be doing? What would he have done or have access to or benefit going to Pedo Island? And apparently the DOJ posted underage porn and had to take it down. Okay, so that's about what I was expecting. Complete fucking fuck up. And this is why everybody is like, maybe we should just get off this, because this is just a distraction and a waste of time. Because they have to pull, like, lawyers from other things to go and address all of this. Like, all the Somali fraud that, if they can get that back in the news cycle, it would politically be devastating. They have to get military lawyers to go do all that because all the people prosecuting that at the state level resigned over issues with ICE. Like, there was actually a guy there in the state politics who was a leftist who was spearheading getting rid of all the fraud, and then they wanted to have him persecute Renee Good's wife or something, and he's like, you know what, I quit. And then he got fired. Okay, so they had to go pull lawyers, it just drains resources. Because, what was in there was kind of stuff that we already all knew. Apparently, and I'm not going to wade through all the files, apparently Mossad, Zionism, transhumanism, spirit cooking, which is basically killing kids and ritual sacrifices, where the global elites go and kill and eat the children. I guess that was all in there. And pedo stuff everywhere. Nothing that was new. Nothing that we didn't already all know or suspect. And it's one of those things where the reality is a little more mundane than the fantasy. Because the fantasy is always going to be 1,000 times better. Just putting that out there. Trump is apparently compromised by Israel. Again. Or people in his campaign were. Again. Nothing new. World War III with Iran is likely in the next few weeks. Bibi's going back to Washington this week to fucking have another powwow with Trump. Regional Middle East war that no one wants. We're gonna do it. Might as well fucking do it. That's aside. So, what is an information containment op within memetic warfare? Because this is something that was mentioned in the Epstein files. That was a little bonus, and I think that it's, I don't think you should be fixated on it, but this is a little interesting thing to put out there. Okay, now, information or memetic warfare, what is a containment operation in that? That is a controlled platform within information warfare that you get all of the dissenting opinions to go to, where you get people who act without restraint because they don't believe they're being supervised, and they go doing extremist stuff, and then you get people that go into this, it's basically like a pen, and you get people that go into this to go, and all the dissenting people acting without restraint, and then you get one or two guys that go in there and agitate that stuff, pushing it to the extremes, and those guys are usually feds. And it turns out there was one that was exposed in all of this in the Epstein files. What do you guys think it was? Facebook, Twitter, Reddit. What do you guys think it was? Poll. 4chan. Nothing beyond their reach except legitimacy. Apparently that is beyond their reach. It's apparently among Ghislaine Maxwell or whatever her name was, apparently a mod. Okay, now we have this article here by the Byline Times, and I will be transparent that this is a British leftist publication, even though they claim to be, you know, firmly anti-corruption, pro-transparency, liberal, democratic. Okay, now this is, and while I'll believe it when I see it because these are just almost always immediately co-opted, this is basically the alternative left. You have the alternative right, okay, which was the neocon. Okay, before it was the right, which is the neocons, and then the left, which was the Democrats. Okay, the just basic centrists, when they're both basically just centrists. And then you have the alternate or extreme right, and then you have the alternate or extreme left. Now, I should have made a diagram with this, but there are certain aspects. I mean, on the far anarchist aspect of the extreme left, you have Antifa and all of that. But that's just one end of it. But once upon a time, I probably would have had a lot more, I guess, center leftist views that would fit into this alternative leftist dumping ground. And people know that, who know anything about my politics. And yet, here we are on the right, or the alternative right, because you just happen to adopt certain conservative values and certain nationalist principles. But you get rid of that amalgamation. You do find some identification with leftists, and this is why you need to actually read some of what the other side is putting out. Now, I'm not going to scroll this article because I printed it off. But what I wanted to talk about, so I'm not going to scroll this, but I am going to read the article, or some of it. The 3 million Epstein files released by the Department of Justice recast Jeffrey Epstein as more than a criminal, sex trafficker, intelligence asset, or professional blackmailer. The files suggest he also had a role to play in the creation of today's online far-right politics. Okay? And this is what I was getting at. This is why when I went earlier and said, oh, I have some leftist viewpoints, you're going to get people that you bitch and complain about all that and have a bunch of drama about it, but this is what I was kind of referring to. And that is you have some common sense. It's more alt-center, maybe. Just not with the establishment. Because the anti-establishment was originally leftist, and then that pendulum just moved. Because you talk to old people that look at the modern political climate, and it's like, oh, well, the right and left just went outside behind the barn and changed clothes. And that's about what it is. So, once upon a time, myself and several other people would have probably been leftists. Anyway. Brexit is just the beginning, he wrote to Palantir founder and post-liberal thinker Peter Thiel in 2016, celebrating the onset of tribalism and the unraveling of globalization. Because you have all this unravels, and now we're all segregated in all these tribal climates called divide and conquer. Epstein appeared to view right-wing populism as an opportunity and to understand very early how the internet could be used to accelerate it. Rather than simply watching this new ecosystem emerge, he seemed to play a part in its formation. Okay. Why would you want to accelerate something? What is accelerationism? And I'm going to explain. You take these normally good ideas and you accelerate them to their logical conclusion. Like when you want to do a communist revolution, you go and you put this, you say, okay, we're poor or something. Communism's a way out of the poverty. We're going to go do something that will eventually lead to communism. Now, the problem is, going in that direction is going to fix the poverty, and you may fix it before you get to the communism. So people on the radical extremes go and accelerate stuff because they want to get to the extremist end of it, which is usually fascism or totalitarianism or something, as quickly as possible. Okay. In October 2011, Jeffrey Epstein met with the creator of the anonymous message board 4chan. This is one of his actual emails. That article is the only one I found that actually bothered to link to the Justice Department. And yeah, they could be taking stuff out of this out of context, but this is one of his actual emails. Last night and the morning in San Francisco, had fun, met some interesting people. There's a cool kid you should meet, Christopher Poole. He's only 23. Read his bio the rest of the day in Seattle. And then he arranged a meeting with this guy who was responsible for 4chan. And then here's him responding, describing why he regards an article about it interesting. The potential for manipulation is huge. This is the article that links to this archived thing by the Washington Post about how 4chan users seize the internet's power for mass disruption. So now you're seeing it. Okay, that guy that he's emailing, by the way, Boris Nikolic, former advisor to Bill Gates. And I think this was the guy that was caught with a bunch of child porn. So, yeah. Okay. This is a bill for web design services that Epstein paid. And I think I got ahead of myself. So, okay, the potential for manipulation is huge. Okay, yeah, this is... Alright, yeah. In 2013, he drafted detailed instructions for controlling his digital footprint. Okay, and this is what this is, okay? Now, while you see the redactions are stuff related to people's names and everything, okay. Fairwinds Credit Union. I've heard of that on personal finance stuff. Anyway, okay, this is a bill that he got. Okay, development work. Finalize and launch JeffreyEpstein.net. 15 hours of work, billed at 100 hours. Edit and update site content, content development, EU, removal, submit, SEO, all this stuff. So this, yeah. And then this bottom one. Link SEO, positive reinforcement, $1,000. Just got paid over $3,000 to build a website and manipulate his digital footprint with this. Okay. And then you start to, see how the rise of 4chan, including Steve Bannon and Gamergate and everything, just kind of became this thing that Epstein directly had a part in shaping. Okay? And then you see some of these other influencers coming out or being exposed. Like this one, this is a note from the FBI. Came across a YouTube video that claims Jeffrey Epstein donated $25,000 to Jean-Francois Garpre to start his YouTube channel. Jean-Francois Garpre, who is an alleged white nationalist, has admitted to having relations with mentally retarded girls. And then the guy notes that he didn't view this guy's YouTube channel in this email with the FBI because of the possibility of child porn on there. I don't know why that was up there, but who is Jean-Francois Garpre? is a white supremacist, former neuroscience researcher, and alt-right political commentator. Now, while I'm not saying that these people, or Bannon or anybody, took money from Epstein and are acting as influencers, his monetary fingerprints are all over this. Because that's what you build, and then you just cherry pick things, and then you get people to go in there and do all of that. Okay, because all these people, all these influencers and stuff that go on YouTube or whatever, how do they live? How do they pay their bills? Because they do this, and if you get doing this, well, you can't go work a normal job. So they have to rely on donations, financiers, backers, or other people to pay them. And that's why if you listen to some of the more honest ones in interviews, they talk about how they have a donor. That's somebody who pays them to put their intentions and things out there. I don't, which is why we have no views, because I'm not going to pay thousands of dollars to promote this podcast when I barely make anything work close to that with the label or the distro, when the whole point of the podcast is to sell music. To get people to go to my web shop and buy music. Physical music retail. All these other guys take money to sell you stuff and get sponsors and get donors, go out there, and they have teams of people that have to be paid. Okay, and this is another thing here, another correspondence with the FBI. It also includes a potential route for Epstein to have encountered James Damore and Kevin Kernicki, agent provocateurs who infiltrated Google and were believed to have been involved in the promotion of the Pizzagate narrative and harassment and threats made against... Okay. See, and now you're starting to see the anatomy of how this unravels. Pizzagate was a theory that everybody remembers from the 2016 presidential cycle, where a pedophilia ring rumored to be discovered to the Democratic Party while researching Anthony Weiner's emails. And what this came to was a bunch of people on the alt-right and everywhere else getting wound up with this, and the end result of this was Edgar Madison Welch, a 20-year-old man from Salisbury, North Carolina, went to some pizza parlor somewhere that was mentioned in all this and fired 3 shots from an AR-15 that struck the rifle's walls, a desk, and a door to self-investigate the conspiracy theory and save all the children. He surrendered to the officers without incident, and it was all that. Now, that was in 2016. It eventually was related to QAnon, which was another disinformation op. Okay, 8 years later, the guy who went and did that was stopped by 2 police officers in North Carolina for an outstanding warrant for probation violation. And when they attempted to arrest him, he pulled out a gun, refused orders to drop it, and then the officers shot him. And he died 2 days later. Okay? That was the end of all of that. But some nut got wound up enough by all this stuff to go and investigate all this and do anything and do all this stuff. And then when he did their thing, he went to jail for a while, and then he got murdered in a traffic stop. Okay. All right. And now what I'm going to explain or read briefly is what's called a white paper. This is from the ACLU. This is an internal document. Like if you work somewhere where they hand out documents on how to do stuff and training materials, white paper is basically like corporate training materials. All right, now this is a massive PDF that was published by the ACLU to advise the Department of Homeland Security and all this in 2016. It's like 60 pages. We're going to scroll down, and I'm going to read Chapter 5, and I did not put the PDFs up in the PowerPoint presentation, so forgive me, and I'm going to skip some of this and summarize this. If people want the actual PDFs, you can go download them, and I can send them to you. If somebody's that concerned about this and wants to read this, I can send you the PDFs. But in April of 2012, this is from Chapter 5, Exploiting Cyberspace. Antonio Martinez, a 25-year-old construction worker from Baltimore, Maryland, was sentenced to 25 years in prison for plotting to bomb a military recruitment center. His plan was to detonate a truck packed with explosives that he had parked outside the facility on the morning of December 8, 2010. As it turns out, the people who provided Martinez with the truck and what he believed were explosives were undercover FBI agents. When Martinez pressed the button, no explosion happened. Instead, he was surrounded by counterterrorism officers, arrested, and charged with the attempted murder of federal officers and attempted use of weapons of mass destruction. Okay, this is the FBI staging stuff. What makes the case different from other sting operations is how Martinez came to FBI's attention. Having converted to Islam less than 6 months before his arrest, Martinez had few extremist connections in the real world, but he maintained a public Facebook page that he used to advertise his ideas about violent jihad and the need to confront anyone who opposes Allah and his prophet. An FBI source noticed Martinez's profile and contacted him, again through Facebook, to find out if he had any plans to become involved in violent jihad. According to the FBI, Martinez told the confidential source that it was his dream to be among the ranks of the Mujahideen, and he hoped Allah would open a door for him because all he thinks about is jihad. Indeed, it was Martinez's idea to target the recruitment station, which he told a confidential source he had visited years earlier when he wanted to join the military. The FBI's actions against Martinez highlight a third approach for dealing with online radicalization. Rather than removing violent content or trying to undercut demand for it, the aim is to take full advantage of the violent extremists and terrorist presences in cyberspace and make maximum use of the information they are sharing with others. As this section shows, this information can be used to gain strategic information about terrorist groups' intentions and networks, tactical intelligence on terrorist operations, and people who are involved with them, and evidence that can be used in prosecution. Exploiting the internet to gather intelligence and or evidence is the most effective way of dealing with online radicalization in the short term, and governments should pursue this approach more systematically. Doing so requires a clarification of existing laws and the creation of appropriate review and oversight mechanism that will give domestic agencies more confidence to operate in cyberspace. And then this goes on to talk about setting rules for cyberspace, how to gather tactical intelligence, procedures for how to do all of this, gather evidence, and then this is another cybersecurity paper, Cyber Swarming, Memetic Warfare, and Viral Surgency, How Domestic Militants Organize on Memes to Incite Violent Insurrection and Terror Against Government and Law Enforcement. And then it goes on to detail the Boogaloo movement, other things within the alt-right, using machine learning to dissect all their terminology analysts. And then recommendations, how they analyze Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and monitor and show their increasing popularity and contagion within the mainstream. And then this is the summary of their conclusions. Here we characterize the spread of the Boogaloo, a conspiracy that self-organizes across multiple web communities on social media. Our topic models show that the meme acts as a meaningful vector to organize seditious sentiment at large. Using time series analysis, we detect change points in the dynamic activity of the meme and show how it deploys strategically to affect chilling new capabilities such as cyber swarming, and strategically attaches apocalyptic alarm to political events such as impeachment. Finally, examine the worrying growth of the meme into mainstream communities. We show how Facebook and Instagram in particular engender cell-like activity to the Boogaloo in the form of group pages. So, there is an entire science and infrastructure and resources, and the company that put out what I just read is a cybersecurity consulting firm that works in conjunction with numerous universities and academics. So, how can you protect yourself online from the PSYOP? Because that's what this is. See, Epstein, he's already been exposed as an intelligence asset from the deep state, all of that, whatever the them is. And how many of these online things, and how can you protect yourself? Because the goal of all this, with the creation of the internet, was to just kind of keep everybody in these containment groups, or as it was referred to in the cybersecurity white paper, as endangered, cells. Is to wall people off in these digital ghettos. The 88th chamber of Shaolin. We have our own echo chamber. That's the whole point, is to get people in these groups. And this technology, which is, harmful behavior that's manipulating everybody, just it feeds off of that. And then you get these mentally ill people, like that guy, that Islamic guy who... Okay. You convert to Islam and then 6 months later go to the radical extremes of that. That is somebody having a psychotic break. And then people like that are wound out and plucked out of this and then held up as an example to justify more suppression and more crackdowns. To eventually pave the way for a globalist prison planet transhumanist society where your entire move is dictated and you're basically plugged into a VR matrix. Okay, and how do you protect yourself from this online? 1, you don't do illegal dumbass stuff online. Okay? I mean, that's the basic common sense. 2, you use the internet sober so you don't do illegal dumbass stuff online. 3, you use all these AI, all these platforms for their intended purposes and not illegal dumbass stuff. Okay, Facebook was designed to talk to people and it replaced communication. Discogs.com was built to sell records, but not illegal records in niche music genres like NSBM. Because there's a lot of legal stuff that goes with that they don't want to deal with. PayPal is intended to take legal PayPal payment transactions, not sell drugs, not sell illegal goods. 4, don't argue with other people online so you're not tempted to signal, thus not doing illegal dumbass stuff online. Okay, because you get in correspondence with people and you do all this and you start arguing with these people, and I got trapped in this for probably almost two decades of my life at this point. Beyond that, over that. And that is, then you get trapped in this online identity, you get arguing with people, and that online avatar, that online self, is all that you are. So the signal in the process of that, you either say or do something that can be distorted or open you up to doing illegal dumbass stuff. Because the next phase of something is all retaliate against these people, and then that's just illegal and dumb. 5, ignore people doing illegal dumbass stuff online. That's kind of obvious because, again, those are either agitators or people who are trying to trap you. As I just exposed in the white papers and all the evidence. 6, you maintain optimum mental health so you don't do illegal dumbass stuff online. Okay? That's kind of obvious, but most people don't know that. That's why you use this stuff sober. You learn how it is harmful, how being in these environments are harmful. You learn what stuff like FOMO is, imposter syndrome is, narcissism is, and how all these things are just exaggerated by technology and social media addiction and pornography addiction and replacing reality addiction. And if you maintain optimum mental health and use these things responsibly, you're fine. You cut down on the screen time. You get a job that doesn't put screens in your face 24/7. All of that. Anyway, this is the end of this podcast. I hope everybody has a great weekend, and please go to wintersauceproductions.com and purchase something. And then we're going to close out of this one with the Aesir song from the Sudwind Aesir 7-inch. And I think that one is called Buscando La Gloria. Or that was... I get them backwards and I don't have it with me. If everything goes according to plan, the repress of that 7-inch will be available next week. However, we are waiting on a delivery from UPS. And they decided, in their infinite wisdom, to put an $818 hold on my business banking, and the only way to fix that is to call them in the country which the pressing plant is in, or by email. So, that's a mess! But they're hopefully going to do the delivery next week. Thank you. Have a great weekend.